He looked me in the eye and told me to stop wasting his money. He said this while drinking the whiskey I paid for, in the house I paid for. The next morning, his credit card was declined, and he had no idea why. By the time he rushed home to confront me, he found only silence. I had already vanished, taking every cent that belonged to me and leaving him with nothing but his lies. My name is Megan Hart, and for the last 10 years, my life has been a series of calculated risks. At 38 years old, I am a senior compliance analyst for Cedargate Financial Group in Raleigh, North Carolina. My job is to spot discrepancies, identify liabilities, and mitigate disasters before they happen. It is ironic that I spent 8 hours a day protecting a corporation from ruin, yet I came home every evening to a walking liability named Trent Klein. The dining room smelled of rosemary and roasted garlic. I had spent 4 hours preparing this meal to celebrate my best friend, Sierra Vaughn. She was 36, glowing, and had just landed a massive promotion. Her fiancé, Cole Jennings, sat next to her, looking at her with the kind of adoration that usually made me smile. Tonight, however, the air was thick with the scent of expensive bourbon and impending doom. Trent sat at the head of the table. My husband was 42 years old and had been unemployed for 3 years. He called himself a consultant. It was a convenient title that required no actual clients, no income, and no office hours, despite contributing $0 to our household since he was laid off. Trent loved to talk about his finances. Specifically, he loved to talk about his money, as if the direct deposit from Cedargate that hit our joint account every 2 weeks was magically generated by his sheer existence. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. It was a 20-year-old single malt I had bought for his birthday, you know, Trent said, his voice slurring just enough to be dangerous. He leaned forward, ignoring the chicken on his plate to ogle Sierra. If Sierra here was single, I might just have to trade in the old model. Cole stiffened. He placed a protective hand on the back of Sierra's chair. I did what I always did. I smiled. It was a reflex, a muscle memory developed over 5 years of marriage to a narcissist. It was the smile of the peacemaker, the fixer, the woman who smoothed over the rough edges so the guests wouldn't feel awkward. I was about to ask if anyone wanted more wine, desperate to move the conversation to safer ground. Trent slammed his glass down. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. He stared right at me, his eyes glazed and mean. "Stop wasting my money," he sneered. The room went dead silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. He pointed a finger at me, then gestured loosely toward Sierra. "You spend it like it's trash. Megan, always buying pointless crap. Sierra here. Now Sierra knows value. She's worth spending on." Sierra turned a bright, painful shade of crimson. It was not the blush of a compliment. It was the flush of deep, second-hand humiliation. Cole looked ready to leap across the table, his jaw set hard. I sat there for 1 heartbeat, then 2. I looked at Trent, really looked at him. I saw the arrogance. I saw the cruelty. And for the first time in 3 years, the fog of duty lifted. I realized I was not looking at a partner. I was looking at a bad investment that I should have written off long ago. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not throw my wine in his face. I stood up. I dragged my wooden chair back against the hardwood floor. Scream! The sound was harsh, violent, and final. It was the sound of a contract being terminated. Megan Sierra whispered, her voice trembling. "Megan, are you okay?" I did not answer. I did not look at her. I did not look at Cole. And I certainly did not look at Trent, who was blinking up at me with a confused, drunken smirk, waiting for me to apologize for existing. I turned my back on the dinner party. I walked out of the dining room, down the hallway, and straight into our master bedroom. My movements were precise. My hands were steady. I reached up to the top shelf of the closet and pulled down the large black suitcase. It was heavy, but I did not feel the weight. I felt light. I felt absolutely weightless. I unzipped the main compartment. I walked to the dresser. I opened the drawer where Trent kept his shirts. I grabbed a handful of fabric and dropped it into the suitcase. I did not fold them. I did not check for matching socks. I was not packing for a trip. I was excavating a parasite from my life. I dragged the suitcase into the living room. The wheels rumbled against the hardwood floor, a low, grinding sound that cut through the uncomfortable silence. I parked the bag directly in the center of the room, blocking the view of the television. It stood there like a monolith. I pointed at the front door. "If that is how you feel," I said, my voice steady and devoid of tremors, "then you can leave. Right now." Trent chuckled. He shook his head, looking at Cole and Sierra with a conspiratorial grin, as if inviting them to share in the joke. He did not stand up. He took another sip of his whiskey. "God, you are so sensitive," Trent said, rolling his eyes. "Ignore her. Guys. She loves the drama. It's her way of getting attention. It's not funny." "Trent." Sierra snapped. I looked at my best friend. She was standing now, her hands gripping the back of her chair until her knuckles were white. "Nobody is laughing," Sierra continued, her voice rising. "You humiliate her. You do it all the time. It's sick." The room blurred for a second. A memory sliced through the present. Last July. The backyard barbecue. The sun was hot on my neck. I was handing Trent a burger. He took it, looked at me, then looked at Sierra in her sundress. He laughed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "It's like going to the dealership for a sports car and coming home with a minivan." He had said, "Functional? Sure." But nobody looks twice at it. Everyone had laughed nervously. I had forced a smile and gone inside to get more ice. I blinked, pushing the memory back down. Trent was staring at Sierra now, looking annoyed that his audience had turned on him. "I'm just being honest," Trent muttered. "She needs to loosen up. Look at her. She's stiff as a board." Another cut. 2 years ago. The bedroom. I was dressed for work in my gray suit. Trent was still in bed at 10 in the morning. "You dress like a boring accountant." He had groaned, pulling the duvet over his head. "It kills the mood." I had looked at him in the mirror. I was an accountant. My boring suit paid the mortgage. My boring suit paid for the truck he insisted on leasing. My boring suit put food in the refrigerator. I looked at him now. He was sitting on the sofa I bought, drinking the liquor I paid for, wearing a shirt I ironed. "Get out!" I said again. Trent stood up slowly. The amusement vanished from his face, replaced by a dark, ugly sneer. He walked over to the suitcase and kicked it. It didn't fall over. "You are making a mistake," he said, stepping into my personal space. The smell of alcohol was pungent. "You think you can run this house without me? You don't know the first thing about the real world. Megan, without me, you won't even be able to pay the electric bill." I stared at him. The absurdity of his statement was so immense it was almost impressive. I paid every single bill. I managed every investment. I balanced every ledger. He had not contributed a dime to this household in 36 months. Yet, in his mind, he was the essential pillar holding up the sky. "I will take my chances," I said, cold as ice. He snatched the handle of the suitcase. He didn't look back at Sierra or Cole. He looked at me with pure venom. "Fine," he spat. "I will go stay at my mother's. Don't expect me to answer the phone when you call me crying. You will be begging me to come back by Tuesday." He stormed to the door. He yanked it open and marched out into the night. He didn't slam it. He left it wide open, expecting me to run after him. I walked to the door. I watched his taillights flare red as he backed out of the driveway. Then I closed the heavy oak door. I turned the deadbolt. Click. It was a sharp, mechanical sound. It sounded like a bone snapping back into place. Sierra and Cole left 20 minutes later. They tried to stay, tried to comfort me. But I sent them home. I needed the silence. I did not go to sleep. I sat in the living room armchair in the dark. The house was quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. The shoe had dropped. But as the adrenaline faded, a cold, logical thought began to take root in my mind. Trent was a narcissist, but he was also a coward. He never burned a bridge unless he had another one waiting. He had been too confident. He had mocked my spending with a strange, specific arrogance. Stop wasting my money. Why did he think it was his money? I sat there as the digital clock on the cable box ticked from 2 in the morning to 3 in the morning. If he felt bold enough to degrade me in front of our friends, what had he felt bold enough to do when I wasn't looking? I wasn't sad anymore. I was suspicious. The morning sun hit my living room floor with a cheerful brightness that felt insulting. At 8 o'clock sharp, my older sister, Brielle, walked through the front door without knocking. She carried 2 large coffees and the kind of energy that could level a building. Bree was 41 years old, a corporate headhunter, and she had never liked Trent. "Drink this," Bree commanded, shoving a cardboard cup into my hand. "And tell me you actually kicked the leech out." "I did," I said, taking a sip. The caffeine hit my system like a jolt of electricity. "Good," Bree said, "because if you hadn't, I was going to throw his stuff on the lawn myself." Before I could answer, there was a tentative knock at the door. It was Sierra. She looked nothing like the glowing woman from dinner last night. Her face was pale, her eyes were puffy, and her hands were trembling as she clutched her phone. "Megan," Sierra whispered, stepping inside. "I am so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared it would ruin everything. But after last night, you have to see this." She unlocked her phone and handed it to me. I looked at the screen. It was a text thread with Trent. My stomach dropped. The messages were not just friendly, they were predatory. "You looked amazing today." One read, "Cole doesn't deserve you. You need a man who knows what he wants." I scrolled down. My thumb hovered over a message sent 3 days ago. "Just say the word." Sierra. "Just say the word and I leave this marriage. I am only staying out of pity." I never replied. Sierra said, her voice cracking. "I swear. Megan, I didn't want to cause drama." "I know," I said softly. I believed her. Sierra was a people pleaser. Trent was a hunter. Then I saw the image attached to the last text. It was a screenshot of a bank account balance. My bank account balance. The number showed $48,000 in savings. Under the image, Trent had written, "Money isn't an issue. I control the finances. I can take care of you better than he can." The audacity took my breath away. He was using the money I earned, the savings I built by working 60-hour weeks, to seduce my best friend. "He told me to stop wasting his money," I said, the realization settling in cold and heavy. He actually believes it is his. "Look at my replies," Sierra urged. I looked. Her texts were short and panicked. "Stop. Don't contact me. I am blocking you." But he had just switched to a different messaging app. Bree snatched the phone from my hand. Her eyes narrowed. "Okay, this is not a breakup anymore," Bree said, her voice shifting into general mode. "This is war. We need hard copies. Megan, get your laptop. Sierra, screenshot everything. Export the chat logs. Save them to the cloud and print them out. I want everything on paper. We need proof that he is the one destroying the marriage." My phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a name that used to make me smile but now made me nauseous. Trent. I picked it up. A single text message. "Coming by at noon to get my golf clubs. Don't lock the door." It was not a request. It was an order. He expected me to be docile. He expected the door to be open. "He is coming," I said. "Let him come," Bree said, already typing on her own phone. "But you won't be here. And neither will the locks." Bree held out a business card she had pulled from her purse. It was thick, Cream-colored cardstock. Call her. Bree ordered. Marla Denton. She handled my boss's divorce. She is expensive, but she eats men like Trent for breakfast. I dialed the number. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady when the receptionist put me through. I explained the situation briefly, the verbal abuse, the kicking him out, the texts to Sierra. Marla Denton listened without interrupting. When she finally spoke, her tone was not sympathetic. It was clinical. It was sharp. Mrs. Hart, listen to me closely, Marla said. You have the moral high ground, which is nice. But in a divorce court, moral high ground does not pay the mortgage. We don't fight with feelings. We fight with accounts. Do you have access to his credit report? I think so, I said. Get it, Marla commanded. Find out where the money is going. Because if he is arrogant enough to claim he controls your money, he is arrogant enough to spend it like he owns it. I hung up the phone. I looked at the clock. It was 9 a.m. I had 3 hours before Trent arrived. Let's get to work, I said. The office of Marla Denton smelled of mahogany and expensive decisions. It was a cold, sterile environment designed to dismantle lives with surgical precision. I sat in a leather chair that was slightly too stiff, clutching a folder of bank statements against my chest. I felt foolish. I felt like I was wasting her time. I just need to cancel his credit cards, I said, my voice sounding small in the large room. He is an authorized user. I just need to cut him off so he understands I am serious. Marla did not blink. She sat behind her glass desk, looking at me with eyes that had seen every variation of marital betrayal imaginable. She extended a hand. Give me the statements. Megan, she said. I handed them over. I expected her to glance at them and nod. Instead, she pulled out a red pen. She flipped the pages with a rhythmic snap. 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 Have you noticed any unusual spending in the last 6 months? Marla asked without looking up. No, I answered quickly. I mean, Trent likes to eat out, but I check the main checking account every week. It is fine. Marla stopped flipping. She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. You check the main account, she repeated flatly. What about the emergency fund? The high-yield savings account linked to the overdraft protection. I don't check that one often. I admitted. It is for emergencies. It sits there. Look, Marla said. She slid the paper across the desk and pointed the red pen at a column of numbers. I looked. At first, the numbers were just black ink on white paper. Then they resolved into a narrative. The Capitol Grill, $400. Friday night. The Ritz-Carlton Charlotte, $650. Saturday night. Tiffany and Company, $1,200. My breath hitched. I felt a physical blow to my chest, as if someone had kicked me. I had been working late that weekend. Trent had told me he was visiting his mother. I didn't authorize these, I stammered. Keep looking, Marla said. Her voice was not kind, but it was necessary. I looked at the balance summary at the bottom of the page. The number that was supposed to be there was $48,000. That was the safety net I had built over 7 years. The number on the page was $13,900. Oh my God, I whispered. The room spun. He spent nearly $35,000 in 4 months. It is called dissipation of assets, Marla said, her tone clinical. He is draining the marital estate for non-marital purposes, likely on the woman you mentioned, but that is not the worst part. She flipped to the next page. She circled a line item I had never seen before. Pay Now Lending. Monthly auto debit $312. What is that? I asked. We don't have a loan with them. You might not, Marla said, but he does. And since it is appearing on your joint statement, it means your name is likely on it too. Or he used your social security number to co-sign without your knowledge. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just theft. It was identity fraud. It was a systematic dismantling of my financial future while he smiled across the dinner table and told me I was boring. We need to pull your full credit report immediately, Marla said, reaching for her keyboard. If he has opened one loan, he has likely opened others. I want to take it all, I said, my voice trembling with a rage I had never felt before. I want to drain the account today, before he buys her another diamond. No, Marla commanded. Her voice was sharp, cutting through my panic. You will not act out of emotion. You will act out of strategy. If you take it all, a judge will see you as vindictive. You will transfer exactly 50% of the remaining balance into a new, separate account, not a penny more, not a penny less. She printed a document and slid it toward me. We are going to file for a freezing of assets, Marla continued. But first, you secure your half. You change every password. You lock down your credit. And you document this loan as fraud. I stared at the papers. The numbers blurred. The betrayal was absolute. Marla leaned forward. Her eyes were hard. Megan, listen to me. This isn't just a breakup anymore, she said. Tomorrow, you are not just walking away from a husband. You are escaping a trap he has been building around you for years. Bree and I walked into the branch of First National Bank at 10 in the morning. The air conditioning was freezing, but for once, I was not shivering. My sister stood next to me at the teller window like a bodyguard, her arms crossed over her chest, daring anyone to waste our time. I need to open a new individual checking account, I told the branch manager, a polite woman named Mrs. Gable, sole ownership. And I need to revoke all authorized user privileges on my primary credit cards immediately. We spent the next 45 minutes scrubbing my digital life clean. I sat there watching Mrs. Gable type, feeling a strange mixture of nausea and exhilaration. We reset every password. We changed the security questions. I changed my mother's maiden name to a word Trent would never guess because he never paid attention to things I actually liked. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything. Then came the transfer. How much would you like to move to the new account, Mrs. Gable asked. I looked at the screen. The balance was $13,900. Move exactly $6,950, I said. Bree raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. It felt petty to leave him exactly half of the wreckage he had caused. But Marla's voice was in my head. Do not look vindictive. Look compliant. I was following the rules. I was leaving him his share of the assets, even if he had already spent 3 times that amount on hotels and jewelry. Now, let's look at the credit report, I said. Mrs. Gable printed out a fresh report. She frowned as she scanned the second page. Ms. Hart, are you aware of a platinum visa opened 4 months ago? She asked. The billing address is listed as a P.O. box on Elm Street. I stared at the paper. I did not have a P.O. box. Elm Street, Bree murmured, leaning in. Megan, isn't that near the shopping center? My heart stopped. Elm Street was not just near the shopping center. It was directly next to FitLife, the gym where Sierra worked out every morning at 6 o'clock. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Trent had opened a secret credit card in my name, using a secret mailbox, specifically to build a base of operations near the woman he was trying to steal. It was not just an affair. It was a tactical operation funded by my salary. Close it, I said, my voice shaking. Flag it as fraud. He is not me. We left the bank at 11:30. I sat in Bree's car and took out my phone. I sent Trent exactly one text message. All future communication will be handled through my lawyer. Do not contact me directly. Then I went into my settings and silenced all notifications from him. I did not block him yet because Marla needed the evidence, but I refused to hear the ding of his rage. It didn't take long. At 12:15, my phone lit up. It wasn't a text. It was a call. I let it ring 3 times. Bree looked at me, nodding encouragingly. I picked up. What the hell did you do? Trent screamed into my ear. I could hear background noise, clinking silverware, laughter. He was at a restaurant. Hello, Trent, I said calmly. My card was declined. He hissed, his voice dropping to a frantic whisper. I am at lunch with the guys. The waiter just told me the card is invalid. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Fix it. Now I cannot fix it, I said. I removed you as an authorized user. You have no credit cards. You have no access to my savings. There was a silence on the other end, heavy and stunned. You looked at the statements, he said, his voice changing. The anger evaporated, replaced instantly by the oily, condescending tone he used when he wanted to manipulate me. Megan, honey, listen. You are overreacting. That money, look, that is seed capital. I am working on a venture, a surprise. You just don't understand how business works. You have to spend money to make money. He was doing it again. He was treating me like the quiet, stupid wife who paid the bills and asked no questions. He thought he could talk his way out of grand larceny with a few buzzwords. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice sharp and clear. I understand that you opened a P.O. box next to Sierra's gym. I understand you spent $35,000 on a life you cannot afford. Megan, stop it, he warned, panic creeping in. You are an analyst. You just crunch numbers. You don't get the big picture. I am a senior compliance analyst. Trent, I said, feeling a surge of power I had not felt in years. My entire job is to identify fraud and shut down liabilities, and I just shut you down. I hung up the phone. My hand was trembling, but for the first time in my marriage, my eyes were wide open. My phone rang again at 2 p.m. This time, the caller ID did not say Trent. It said Evelyn Klein. My mother-in-law was 74 years old and possessed a weaponized form of passive aggression that could cut glass. I looked at Bree. Bree shook her head, but I answered anyway. I needed to know how far the spin control had gone. Megan. Evelyn's voice came through the speaker, crisp and disappointed. I am hearing very disturbing things. Trent is at my house. He is distraught. He says you locked him out. He says you cut off his access to his own money. It is not his money. Evelyn, I said, my voice tired. It is my salary. And he has spent nearly $35,000 of it in 4 months on hotels and jewelry for another woman. There was a pause on the line. I expected shock. I expected horror. Instead, I heard a sigh that sounded like she was dealing with a stubborn child. Megan, honestly, Evelyn said, you always make everything so dramatic. Men wander. It is biology. If he is looking elsewhere, perhaps you should ask yourself what you are not providing at home. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. Are you blaming me? I asked. He is harassing my best friend. He is stealing from me. He is a man with needs, Evelyn snapped, her facade slipping. He needs to feel like a provider. He needs to feel admired. You are always so cold, so corporate. Maybe if you were more like that friend of yours, softer, more feminine, he wouldn't feel the need to seek comfort outside. She was implying Sierra was worth more than me. She was telling me that my husband's theft was my fault because I didn't stroke his ego enough while I was busy paying his debts. I am done listening to this, I began. Suddenly, the phone was ripped from my hand. Bree had been listening, and her patience had evaporated. She put the phone to her ear. Listen to me, Evelyn, Bree said, her voice low and dangerous. You raised a parasite. You raised a man who thinks the world owes him a living because you never told him no in 42 years. Well, Megan is done. Do not expect my sister to be his ATM anymore. If he wants money, tell him to get a job. Bree hung up the phone and tossed it onto the sofa. The silence that followed was heavy. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me, Bree said, her eyes blazing. I should have done that at your wedding. My phone buzzed again. I flinched. But it was not a call. It was a text message. It was from Raymond Klein, Trent's father. Raymond was a former Marine, a man of few words who usually spent family gatherings staring at the television to avoid Evelyn's chatter. I opened the message. "I am sorry. I will talk to him." I stared at the screen. Then, another message popped up. "Have your lawyer call me. I will tell her about the inheritance scheme." I forwarded the message to Marla immediately. An hour later, Marla called me back. Her voice sounded energized, like a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. "Megan, your father-in-law is a gold mine," Marla said. "He just gave us a sworn statement over the phone. Apparently, Trent has been borrowing money from friends and private lenders for years. Do you know how he secures these loans? He tells them he is expecting a massive inheritance from his parents any day now." I felt sick. He is borrowing against his parents' death. "Exactly," Marla said. "And Raymond told me that Trent tried to get him to invest $50,000 in a consulting firm last year. Raymond refused because he looked into it and realized the firm didn't exist. Trent isn't just lying to you, Megan. He is lying to everyone. He views every person in his life as a tool to be used." I sat back on the couch. For years, I thought Trent's failures were just bad luck. I thought he was a misunderstood genius who just needed a break. Now I realized the truth. He was not unlucky. He was a predator. He had tried to scam his own father. He had scammed me, and he was currently trying to scam Sierra. "What does this mean for the divorce?" I asked. "It means we have leverage," Marla said. "Raymond is willing to testify that Trent has a history of financial deception. It destroys his credibility. If Trent tries to claim he contributed to the household or that he was a victim, his own father will stand up in court and call him a liar." I looked at the phone. Raymond had always seemed distant, but he had been watching. He had seen what his son was becoming, and he had finally decided to draw a line. "He has no one left," I said softly. "No," Marla corrected me. "He has no one left to use. And that is what terrifies him." The scratching at the front door started at 2 in the morning. It was not a knock. It was the metal sound of a key being jammed aggressively into a lock that had been changed 6 hours ago. I was awake instantly, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I sat up in bed, listening to the furious rattling of the deadbolt. "Open the door!" Trent's voice came through the wood, muffled but unmistakably slurred. "Open this damn door! This is my house. I did not go to the door." I did not yell back. I did not engage. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and dialed 911. "Emergency services," the operator said. "My name is Megan Hart," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "My estranged husband is trespassing on my property. He is intoxicated, and he is trying to force entry into my home. I am alone, and I feel unsafe." I stayed on the line until I saw the red and blue lights flash through the sheer curtains of the living room window. Only then did I walk to the front door. When I opened it, 2 officers were already standing on the porch. Trent was leaning against the railing, looking disheveled. He saw the police and immediately straightened his posture, his face transforming into a mask of confused innocence. "Officer, honestly," Trent said, holding his hands up, "this is a misunderstanding. My wife, she is having a breakdown. I just came to pick up my paperwork and my allergy medication. She locked me out. She is not thinking clearly." He sounded reasonable. He sounded like a concerned husband dealing with a hysterical woman. For a second, I saw the younger officer look at me with doubt. I stepped forward. I did not scream. I did not cry. I held out my phone with the printed screenshot of his text message from earlier that day. "He does not live here," I said clearly. "I have retained counsel for a divorce." He sent me this text ordering me to leave the door unlocked so he could enter without my permission. "He is not here for medication. He is here to intimidate me." The older officer took the paper. He looked at the text. Then he smelled the air around Trent. The scent of whiskey was undeniable. "Sir?" the officer said, stepping between Trent and the door. "You need to leave the premises. If you need property retrieved, you can request a civil standby during daylight hours. Right now, you are trespassing." Trent's mask slipped. The charming victim vanished, replaced by the snarling man who had humiliated me at dinner. He lunged toward the step, his eyes fixed on me. You will regret this," he growled, his voice low and venomous. "You think you are smart? You are nothing without me." The officer put a hand on Trent's chest and pushed him back firmly. "Walk away, sir, or you are going in the back of the car." I watched them escort him to the sidewalk. I waited until I saw his taillights disappear down the street. Then I went back inside. I locked the deadbolt. Then I dragged a heavy dining chair and wedged it under the doorknob. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now that the danger was over, but my mind was crystal clear. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. By 7 in the morning, my phone began to vibrate incessantly. It was not calls, it was notifications. Facebook, Instagram, text messages from mutual acquaintances. I opened the Facebook app. There, at the top of my feed, was a post from Trent. It was a long, rambling essay. I never thought I would be the one to say this, but I am heartbroken. Last night, my wife kicked me out of our home with nothing but the clothes on my back. I have supported her for years, loved her through her mental health struggles. And this is the thanks I get. I am sleeping in my car. Please pray for me. The comments were already pouring in. "Stay strong, bro. That is evil. Women are crazy." He was rewriting history. He was painting himself as the martyr and me as the unstable villain. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I wanted to scream the truth. I wanted to post the bank statements. I wanted to tell the world about the $35,000 and the jewelry he bought for Sierra. I texted Marla instead. "He is lying about me online." Marla's reply came 1 minute later. "Let him. He is publicly claiming he is destitute while we have proof he spent thousands last week. He is creating evidence for us. Do not engage. Do not comment." She was right. But I knew Trent. He thrived on the audience. He needed the drama. He needed me to see the comments so he could feel powerful. I did the one thing he would not expect. I did not fight. I did not defend myself. I went into my account settings. I clicked deactivate account. I did the same for Instagram. I did the same for Twitter, in 3 minutes. I erased myself from the digital world. I cut off his audience. I cut off his supply. He could scream into the void all he wanted, but I would not be there to hear it. It was not a retreat. It was a tactical blackout. And I knew that somewhere, in his mother's guest room. Trent was refreshing my page, waiting for a reaction that would never come. The living room felt less like a gathering of friends and more like a tribunal. I had invited 6 of our closest mutual friends over at 7 o'clock. These were people who had known us for years, people who had liked Trent's Facebook post that morning, people who thought I was having a mental breakdown. I sat on the sofa. Bree sat on my left, and Sierra sat on my right. They were not just lending support, they were my perimeter defense. I did not offer anyone a drink. I did not make small talk. I simply reached down to the coffee table and picked up a stack of manila envelopes. I handed one to Derek Mills, Trent's golf partner. I handed another to Sarah, who had commented, "Stay strong," on Trent's post. "Read them," I said. The room was silent, save for the rustling of paper. I watched their faces. I watched confusion turn to shock, and then to horror. "He sent this to Sierra on the 4th of July, Sarah whispered, looking at the timestamp on the printout. She looked up at me, her eyes wide. "Megan, we were all at the lake house on the 4th. He was sitting next to you on the dock holding your hand when he sent this." "Keep reading," Bree said, her voice hard. They turned the page to the bank statements. The highlight marker showed the hotel charges, the jewelry store, the cash withdrawals. Derek Mills shifted uncomfortably in his armchair. He was a good guy, but he was weak when it came to calling out bad behavior. He looked at the statement, then at Sierra. and finally at me. His face had gone pale. I didn't think he was actually doing it, Derek mumbled. The room went dead quiet. Doing what? Derek, I asked. Derek rubbed the back of his neck. He couldn't meet my eyes. We were on the back nine a few months ago. Trent was venting. He said he was bored. He pointed at a picture of Sierra on his phone and said, he said he bet $100 he could get her to leave Cole before the end of the year. Sierra let out a choked sob. Cole put his arm around her, his face darkening with a rage that looked ready to explode. It was a bet, Sierra whispered, her voice trembling. I was a bet. He said it was just a locker room talk, Derek said quickly, trying to defend himself. But then he started bragging about the money. He said he had found a loophole. I leaned forward. This was the piece I needed. What loophole? Derek? I asked. Derek sighed, looking defeated. He said he opened a secret account. He bragged that you were so busy watching the big accounts for your job that you wouldn't notice a few leaks in your own boat. He specifically mentioned getting a new card sent to a mailbox across town so you wouldn't see the bills. The air left the room. It was the confirmation of premeditation. Trent hadn't just made a mistake. He had planned to rob me. The mood shifted instantly. The people who had been sympathetic to Trent's homeless victim act were now looking at the papers in their hands with disgust. Sarah pulled out her phone and deleted her comment on his post right in front of me. I am so sorry, Megan, Sarah said. I had no idea. I did not smile. I did not say it is okay. It was not okay. Derek, I said calmly, I need you to write that down. I need a signed statement about the bet and the conversation regarding the mailbox. Megan, I don't want to get involved in a legal battle, Derek stammered. You are already involved, Bree cut in. You knew he was planning to defraud his wife and harass her best friend, and you said nothing. You can either write the statement for us, or you can explain to a subpoena why you were complicit. Derek nodded slowly. Okay, I will write it. I took a photo of Derek writing the statement. I took a photo of the signed paper. I was not enjoying this. There was no joy in watching my social circle implode, but I was building a wall, brick by brick, that Trent could not climb over. Sierra was weeping softly into Cole's shoulder. I feel dirty. I feel like he has been watching me. We are changing the locks tonight, Cole said, his voice grim. And I am installing cameras. If he comes near our house, I won't call the cops first. I looked at them, my friends, hurt and betrayed by a man we all thought we knew. Trent relied on two things to survive my money and his charm. I had cut off the money yesterday. Tonight, I had cut off the charm. He had no story left to tell. He was just a thief with a canceled credit card, screaming into a void that was rapidly getting larger. The garage smelled of motor oil and stagnation. It was Saturday morning, and I was purging the last physical remnants of Trent from the property. I wanted the house to be clean. I wanted it to be mine again. I reached for his heavy red toolbox on the bottom shelf. Trent was not a handyman. He bought tools to look like a man who could fix things, but he never actually fixed anything. I intended to donate the entire box to charity. As I lifted it, I felt something shift inside. It wasn't the metallic clank of a wrench. It was the soft slide of paper. I opened the lid. Under the tray of pristine, unused screwdrivers, I found a thick manila envelope taped to the bottom of the box. I pulled it loose. My hands were covered in dust, but a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature ran down my spine. I opened the clasp and slid the contents onto the workbench. Photographs spilled out. My breath caught in my throat. They were not photos of us. They were not photos of his family. They were photos of Sierra. There was Sierra walking her dog. There was Sierra sitting at an outdoor table at the daily grind. There was Sierra getting into her car in the parking lot of her office. They were taken from a distance, likely from inside a car. Oh my God, I whispered. I reached for the small black notebook that had fallen out with the pictures. I opened it. It was not a diary. It was a log. September 12th, 8:15 in the morning. Blue sweater. She looks tired. Cole is not with her. September 14th, 6 o'clock in the evening. Gym. She stayed on the treadmill for 40 minutes. I flipped to the last written page. The handwriting was jagged, pressed hard into the paper. She is wasted on him. She needs a real man. She will be mine. This was not an affair. This was not a romantic pursuit. This was a hunt. Bree, I screamed. My voice sounded thin and terrified. Bree ran into the garage, holding a trash bag. She saw my face and dropped the bag instantly. She looked at the photos on the workbench. Her face went pale, then hard as stone. "Don't touch anything else," Bree commanded. She ran to the kitchen and came back wearing yellow rubber dish gloves. She picked up a Ziploc bag from the box of supplies. With the precision of a crime scene investigator, she used the tips of her gloved fingers to slide the notebook and the photos into the bag. "We are sending these to Marla right now," Bree said. "Take pictures of every page. High resolution. We photographed everything." I emailed the files to Marla Denton with the subject line, "Urgent. Evidence of stalking." Marla called me 4 minutes later. "Megan," Marla said, her voice devoid of its usual calm professional detachment. "This changes the landscape entirely. We are no longer looking at a simple divorce. I am filing for an emergency restraining order against him for both you and Sierra. This man is dangerous. There is something else," I said. I looked at the last document in the envelope. It was a commercial lease agreement for the P.O. box on Elm Street. I read the tenant name. It was not Trent Klein. It was Klein Venture Solutions, LLC. He opened a company. I told Marla. Klein Venture Solutions. "Check the Secretary of State website." Marla ordered. "Now." "Look at the filing." I opened my laptop on the workbench. I typed in the business name. The search result popped up instantly. Klein Venture Solutions, LLC, status active, registered agent Trent Klein. I scrolled down to the financial section. My heart stopped. Guarantor Megan Hart. He had used my social security number, my credit history, and a forged digital signature to back a limited liability company. "I am the guarantor," I whispered, feeling the blood drain from my face. "Marla, if he defaults on any loans this company takes out, they come after me." That is exactly what he planned. Marla said, "He was building a businessman persona to take out business loans, spend the cash, and leave you with the corporate debt when the house of cards collapsed. It is sophisticated fraud." I looked at the photos of Sierra in the plastic bag. Then I looked at the fraudulent business filing on my screen. Trent wasn't just a loser. He was a parasite who had spent years burrowing into my life, setting up multiple fail-safes to ensure that if he went down, he would take me down with him. "When can we end this?" I asked. "Mediation is scheduled for Tuesday morning," Marla said. Her voice was like a guillotine blade. "We are going to walk into that room, and we are going to drop a nuclear bomb on his table. He thinks he is coming to negotiate alimony. He has no idea he is walking into a felony indictment." The mediation room at the law firm smelled of stale coffee and aggressive cologne. Trent sat across the long mahogany table, wearing his best navy suit. He looked confident. He looked like a man who believed his own lies. "I want the house," Trent said, leaning back in his chair. "And I want spousal support. I have been out of the workforce for 3 years supporting her career. I have a right to the lifestyle to which I am accustomed. I will not let her shortchange me." He tapped his pen against the table. Tap, tap, tap. It was a sound that used to make my stomach knot with anxiety. Today, it just sounded annoying. Marla Denton did not say a word. She simply opened her leather briefcase. She did not pull out a notepad. She pulled out a stack of documents thick enough to be a phone book. She slid the first pile across the table. "Bank statements," Marla said. showing $35,000 in dissipated assets. Trent's lawyer picked them up, frowning. Trent rolled his eyes. Marla slid the second pile. Credit report and commercial lease agreement for a P.O. box on Elm Street, she continued, her voice devoid of emotion. Registered Decline Venture Solutions, LLC, a company fraudulently opened using my client's social security number as the guarantor. Trent stopped tapping his pen. His lawyer stiffened. And finally, Marla said, sliding the Ziploc bag containing the black notebook and the photos across the smooth wood. A log of Sierra Vaughn's daily movements, written in your client's handwriting, along with unauthorized surveillance photographs. Trent's lawyer opened the bag. He looked at one photo. He looked at the notebook. He closed the file immediately and looked at Trent with a mixture of panic and disgust. Trent, his lawyer whispered harshly, "You did not tell me about this. It is research." Trent stammered, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. I was just... "We are offering a settlement," Marla interrupted, her voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. "Trent leaves the house immediately. He waives all rights to Megan's retirement. He assumes full liability for the debt incurred by the LLC. He signs a permanent restraining order for both Megan Hart and Sierra Vaughn. And he walks away with exactly $0 in spousal support." "You are crazy!" Trent shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "I won't sign that. My father won't let you do this. I will drag this out for years." Marla smiled. It was a terrifying smile. She pulled one last piece of paper from her folder. "Actually," Marla said, "we received a courier package from Raymond Klein this morning. It is a notarized affidavit. He has formally removed you from his will effective yesterday. He states that any loans you secured based on future inheritance are now based on, well, nothing." Trent looked as if he had been punched in the gut. The safety net he had relied on, the arrogance of his future wealth, was gone. "You have two choices," Marla said, leaning in. "You can sign the agreement and leave with your freedom. Or I can walk this notebook and these fraud documents over to the district attorney's office. Stalking and identity theft carry prison time. Trent." "How do you think you will fare in a cell?" Trent looked at his lawyer. His lawyer looked down at his papers, refusing to make eye contact. "Sign it," his lawyer whispered. Trent looked at me. He was searching for the woman who used to apologize, the woman who used to fix everything. She wasn't there. He started, his voice cracking. He picked up the pen. His hand shook violently. He signed the paper. The scratch of the pen against the page was the sound of his ego dying. The next morning, at 7 o'clock, my phone buzzed. I had unblocked him for exactly 1 hour to ensure the final transfers went through. A text from Trent appeared. "Stop wasting my money. You will regret this." It was pathetic. It was a reflex from a ghost. I did not reply. I walked into the bank and authorized the final closure of the joint accounts. I transferred the last of my funds to my new bank. I froze the credit lines. Then I drove to the rental apartment I had secured 2 towns over under my maiden name. I had already accepted a transfer to the Cedar Gate office in Denver, Colorado. The movers were coming tomorrow. I went back to the house one last time. It was empty. It echoed. I left the keys on the kitchen counter next to a copy of the restraining order. I walked out the front door and locked it behind me. I didn't look back. Trent thought he had lost his money. He didn't understand that he had lost something much more valuable. He had lost his control. And I had finally found mine. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you guys are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on Trent's karma. Don't forget to subscribe to the Victoria Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button so we can get this story out to more people who need to hear it.